All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all of you that are out there checking me out this morning. I appreciate you for joining me once again. Hopefully last night was kind to you. It was a little bit of a hit or miss, we'll say bittersweet night for me. We'll take a look at some of the picks that I wrote up for Patreon. Ended up going 3 for 3 over there, 3 winners, 3 losers, and we'll explain kind of why those 3 losers ended up being losers or duds on the night. But if you're not subscribed yet, take a moment, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. Make sure that notifications are turned on so that you get notified every time that I go live, which is typically Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you ring that bell, you won't miss any of these live streams. And definitely drop a like on this. We hit over 100 likes yesterday, and it's all thanks to you clicking that like button. So keep doing that for me, and I'll keep showing up here every morning helping you with your player prop research. So thank you to everybody who is up in the chat this morning. We've got just 3 NBA games. I think originally it was supposed to be 4, but one of the games got canceled. I think COVID's kind of rearing its ugly head once again. So we'll definitely have to make do with just 3 games on tonight's NBA slate. Shout out to I Am Trash in Roblox. Love that name. You're back again. Good to see you. Anthony says, let's go. Good morning. Yesterday's picks with NFL on point made over $2,000. Love to hear that, Tony. Debnesht, good to see you back in here this morning. I'm not ignoring you in Discord, okay? Okay, I'm a busy guy. I'm here trying to get ready for the live stream to help the fine folks out with some of their favorite NBA player props. We're going to be talking points, rebounds, assists, and three-point makes. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot up on the PrizePicks board just yet. And we'll get into that as well. Delvin, let's get this money. Good to see you up in here, Delvin. Thanks for joining me this morning. Jen, good to see you as well. Good morning to you. Community pick comes through when the crowd goes wild. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that community pick in just a moment. Listen, I might have went 3 for 3 last night, but the community, we took a vote. We had a poll up in Discord, and the community definitely came through with 2 winning picks. So if you tailed that, you made some money. Travis, good morning to you. JC Millis, second time playing yesterday, ended up winning $250 on that NFL game. Awesome. Love to hear the profits coming in for you. Wiggy's back up in the building. What's up? Today's a new day. Last night was garbage. Right players in the right spots, but they didn't perform. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a couple of those players in just a moment. Ronald's Green, what's up to you? Another member of our Patreon/Discord community. Love to see you back up in here. JC says, glad I found a community. Let's get that money. I'm glad you're here. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm glad that you're on board as well. Lou says, I'm glad I found Curry. Thanks for the inspiration. You're welcome, Lou. Thanks for being here each and every morning. Royster Cam says, I told you, PJ Tucker, bro, over assist was a lock. Don't follow those projections all the time. I don't, but I do use them as a point of reference, okay? They're not always right. And I do always encourage that you guys do further research beyond these live streams, because this shouldn't be the end-all be-all in terms of your player prop research. Hopefully, though, it gives you a lot of good information, a good starting point, and you go out and do a little bit of independent research. But I'm glad that PJ Tucker play worked out for you, my friend. Jimmy says, What does Jimmy say? Jimmy says a lot. Good morning, beautiful people. Did we have some luck last night? A little bit of luck, a little bit of luck. Al says, good morning. Let's see if I can get a hat trick, make it 3 days in a row. I'm up to $800. Holy cow. Wally, good to see you in here. Good morning to you. Let's try to win some money. Let's not go too crazy, though. It's just a 3-game NBA slate. There's a ton of injury news. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Kyle, good morning to you. Thank you, Aaron Gordon and Jared Allen, for your last-second dunks. Made $850 last night. Let's keep the train rolling, boys. Also, I need to join the Patreon and Discord. Well, hey, it's there. It's waiting for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Patreon and Discord in just a moment. Head Goat, top of the morning to you. Brendan, let's make some money. Love that positive energy. Love the vibes you're bringing to the live stream. Wes, today is going to be a doozy. NBA's bodies dropping like crazy. Yeah, we got to talk a lot about that injury news. Martin, you're the man of the hour. I'm just here trying to help you folks out. Blue Samples won $200. Let's go. Let's go up again too. CJ, top of the morning to y'all. Top of the morning to you as well. Mind of Reese. I never hit on these short game slates, but let's see what we got. We're going to dig into it. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Jimmy's got his pen and his notepad ready. Love it. Love it. Blue Sample says, like the videos, guys. They changed my pockets for life. LOL. Love that. Yeah, definitely like the stream. Listen to Blue Samples. Anthony says, no New York Golden State Warriors props? Not yet. Not yet. We got to wait and see what's going to happen with some of these New York Knicks guys. There's some players already being ruled out. But yeah, as Jason Yan is saying, thanks for all the help. You're welcome. Don't mind doing it. 5 Brooklyn Nets are already in COVID protocol. Millsap, Aldridge, Bembry, Carter, and JJ. Assume increase for Harden and Durant, right? Gotta assume that. Sethi, hey, what's up to you? Leroy, good morning to you. Zamir, what is up? Emmanuel, good to see you back again. Emmanuel's been in here almost every day, but he's back again. Good to see you as well, George. Good morning. Won big last night. Love it, love it. Eli says, good morning back to you. Luke, man, what's happening, my friend? Taylor, since Jeremy isn't here, I'll real friend hello you. Good to see you, Taylor. Good to see everybody up in here. New York Warrior, Cobb Ty. How? Man, all right. I think we got all the hellos and shout outs and good mornings out to everybody out there. Let's talk about Patreon last night. So last night I was on Jared Allen over 16.5 points versus Miami. He had shown really good form. He was averaging over 17 points per game for the season, 21 points per game in the last 10, 19 in the last 5. He scored 19 against Miami in their previous matchup back on December 1st. So I took the over on him, and that ended up working out. Jared Allen came through for us. Now, the guy that did not come through is Chris Middleton, over 18.5 points. Apparently, Chris Middleton got into a little bit of foul trouble, couldn't keep his hands to himself, and then in the third quarter ends up hyperextending his knee. So I think he finished with like 4 points. Chris Middleton, unfortunately, did not get it done. So that ended up being a dud. Going down to the rebounds, Trae Young over 3.5 rebounds, averaging 4.1 for the season, 90% hit rate in his last 10 games, 100% hit rate in his last 5. That ended up working out against the Houston Rockets. Ended up being a more competitive game than a lot of folks probably anticipated. Now, one that did not work out, Fred VanVleet over 4.5 rebounds versus Sacramento. What happened here with this play and this Tyrese Halliburton over 5.5 assists? The game ended up blowing out. So neither one of these players got their full run of minutes. Their nights were cut short due to a big blowout for the Toronto Raptors. So both of those picks ended up kind of flopping. But we finished strong here with Jayshawn Tate over 3.5 assists versus Atlanta. He racked up 3 early assists versus the Hawks. Ended up coming through for us later in the game. Made us sweat a little bit, but Jayshawn Tate ended up covering. Now, I mentioned these picks because this is the type of stuff that I post on Patreon daily. Now, what I also do is we take all these Patreon picks, we put them into a community poll inside of Discord, and we have all the Discord members vote on their favorite picks. Well, last night's leading vote getters was Jayshawn Tate over 3.5 assists, and we ended up also voting in Trae Young over 3.5 rebounds. A little same game parlay action. If you ran it as a 2-pick power, you ended up tripling up your money, whatever you put in there. You put in $10, you left with 30. So the 2 community picks that we voted on, the ones with the most votes, ended up coming through for the community. So hopefully you tailed those picks. Now tonight for Patreon, I'm running a little promo of my own. I don't know if PrizePicks is going to be running a Steph Curry 3-point promo. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and do my own Steph Curry promo. So if you're a member of the Patreon community, here's what I'm doing for you. For every 3-pointer that Steph Curry makes tonight, I'm giving $5 away. $5 out of my own pocket to a lucky Patreon member. So if he ends up draining 10 3-pointers and goes completely bonkers, that'll be a $50 prize pool. That means 10 of you are going to get a $5 gift from me. Just a way to give back to those who are supporting the community. And so far, the outpouring has been awesome. We got lit in there. Only a goat would do something as such. Thanks. Sounds awesome. We got a say less in here. So people are loving this little promo. Hopefully, Steph goes wild and I'm able to give away as many gifts, as many prizes as I can. So enough about the announcements. Of course, we're talking prize picks today. And if you don't play on prize picks yet, promo code Curry gets you a 100% instant deposit match on your first deposit all the way up to $100. You can check out the link down in the description to get started on prize picks today. You basically just pick your favorite players, your favorite props. You could go 2, 3, 4, or 5 picks. You could flex them. You can power them. However you feel best about playing your entries and win some money. And hopefully these videos help you do just that. So let's go ahead and get started. Short slate, just 3 games. Not a lot of picks to talk about on the prize picks board. So we may have to talk about some picks. Oh, did you see what I just saw? Did you see what just happened? A miracle, literally, right before our very eyes. The prize picks board just popped up with a whole bunch more player props. You love to see it. We just instantly got a whole lot more names to talk about. So, whew, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a weak show today, but it looks like prize picks came through. So let's go ahead and start talking about these games here. We got the Toronto Raptors at the Brooklyn Nets tonight. We've got an implied total of 217 points. It looks like Brooklyn is 7.5-point favorites at home, so there is some blowout risk on this game. Looking at the injury news from both of these games here, starting with the Toronto side, we got Banton and Achua, both game time decisions. If Achua is out, maybe that's a bump up for some rebounds for guys like Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes. They're kind of a team rebounding, team effort rebounding type of squad. So I don't know that I love any rebound props a whole lot. It seems like they split the rebounds up, like everybody's on the glass. Fred VanVleet's even on the glass. So I don't know if I love that. We're going to have to dig into it. But Goran Dragic, OG Anunoby, Kim Birch, all out for Toronto. If we look over at the other side, the Brooklyn Nets, LaMarcus Aldridge, the most meaningful, impactful injury news from this game. He's a game time decision. And then we've got Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, Paul Millsap already ruled out for Brooklyn. 7:30 p.m. brings us Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. He's chasing Ray Allen's 3-point record tonight. Hopefully he gets it done tonight against the New York Knicks in MSG Madison Square Garden. This game has a 212 implied point total. We're looking at a 5-point spread favoring the visiting Golden State Warriors. On the Golden State side, Klay Thompson, James Wiseman already ruled out. No surprises there. Over on the Knicks side, though, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin ruled out. We know Kemba Walker's out of the rotation. I wonder if he finds himself getting some minutes off the bench tonight with Toppin and Barrett out. I don't know. Worth keeping an eye on, though. Moving it down here to the 10 o'clock game, the Phoenix Suns at the Portland Trail Blazers. This one has a pretty long list of injuries to monitor as well. Looking at a 219.5 total, so pretty high total in this one. Loving that healthy total. Phoenix 1.5-point favorites on the road. We got DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, the two biggest injury news, pieces of injury news that we need to keep an eye out on. Both guys are game time decisions. We got Saric, Nader, and Kaminsky already ruled out for Phoenix. And then looking at the Portland side, Brown is a game time decision. We know CJ McCollum, he's got like a collapsed lung or something like that. He's going to miss some time. And Zeller also out for Portland. So that pretty much does it for this small three-gamer, guys. Don't go too crazy with your bankrolls tonight. Don't be throwing out hundreds and thousands of dollars or anything like that, all right? Play light, play responsible, and let's go ahead and start digging into some of these player props. To do that, we're going to be using Action Labs, which is a part of Fantasy Labs. You could definitely check them out if you're looking for some single stat player prop projections. I love the Action Labs tools. Pretty freaking good. You guys are talking about prize picks. Prize picks are up in the stream. Yeah, they might be, man. They might have saw me talking about how weak the board looked and just went ahead and slapped a whole bunch of props up there to help us out here. Yeah, COVID is killing sports right now. Yeah, you might be right, man. It seems like this outbreak of COVID is starting to affect our NBA slate. So Let's go ahead and see what we've got here, and we'll do the best that we can with what is up on the board. Let me get a swig of water here before we get too crazy. All right. Starting things off with the points category. Right now, we've got some Raptors. We got some Nets up on the board. We've got some Knicks. We've got some Warriors to talk about. So let's go ahead and see who's got some of the higher hit rates in terms of covering their points props. I think I want to start with this guy right here, Scotty Barnes. In the last 10 games at 14.5 points, he's covered in 60% of his games. We're getting a little bit of a discount here on Scotty Barnes at just 13.5. You can kind of get a look. His last 5 games have been a little bit of hit or miss, a little bit up and down. So while the last 10 look pretty strong, the last 5 not looking quite as strong for Scotty Barnes. Well, now they just pulled some guys off the board. The Nets are gone. Okay, was there some Nets news? You guys are going to have to keep me posted on the news, but they just pulled the Brooklyn Nets off the board. Anyway, Scotty Barnes, 13.5 points, has covered in 40% of his last 5 games. That's a 2 out of 5 hit rate. Let's go take a look at this matchup here. Barnes kind of fills that shooting guard / small forward role. We're going to use Fantasy Pros, and they've got this DFS tools here that's pretty nice. You can go over to the game recency. I'm going to look at the last 7 games and see how many points per game that the opposing team, the Brooklyn Nets, are giving up to shooting guards and small forwards to see if this is a good spot here for Scotty Barnes. They're giving up about 22 points per game to opposing shooting guards. That puts them somewhere around the top 10 in the last 10 games. And if we look at the small forward position, go down the list, they're giving up just about 16 to 17 points per game to opposing small forwards. So it could be tough here for Scotty Barnes. We got to keep an eye on the Toronto injury news here. But if we go over to the Action Labs tools here, we type in Scotty Barnes' name. I've got him projected for 15.4 points, so they do like him to go over. Now at 13.5, which is where you're going to find him on the FanDuel Sportsbook, he's a minus 118 over 13.5 points. So he is a betting favorite to go over. He's also projected to go over by about almost 2 points. And then on top of that, he's got a pretty decent hit rate in his last 10 games, so Scotty Barnes could be an option for you. Let's refresh this board because they definitely just took some players off the board. Things are changing here in real time, screwing up the live stream a little bit, so I don't know what's going to happen. Not sure what's going to happen. Another guy that we should probably consider, though, with RJ Barrett out is Mr. Evan Fournier. He's kind of fallen out of the rotation ever since those news pieces came out about Tom Thibodeau shaking up the rotation and stuff. Fournier really has kind of struggled in terms of like minutes and things like that. But overall, in his last 10 games, a decent hit rate. He's, hitting about half of the time. But you could see in the last 4 games, things have really dipped off for Evan Fournier. But, you take RJ Barrett out, you take Obi Toppin out, somebody's going to have to step in and fill those minutes. And Evan Fournier would probably be a top contender. Definitely would put him in there before I would put Kemba Walker. Nonetheless, Fournier just a 20% hit rate at covering 12.5 points. Let's take a look and see where Action Labs has Fournier tonight. They got him projected for 13.1 points. At 12.5 points, I'm seeing him as a betting favorite on 2 of your different favorite sports books out there. So the money is coming in on the over, probably due to this RJ Barrett and Obi Toppin news. This is going to be a messy slate, guys. I'm just warning you, don't go crazy tonight. Don't go crazy. Pace yourself. We got a whole bunch of games tomorrow night. I think we got like 11 games Wednesday night. So pace yourself tonight. Go light. Don't go too crazy spending all your money on this wild little 3-game NBA slate. Nonetheless, Fournier projected for more than 12.5. We're seeing money coming in on the over on Fournier at 12.5. He's going to have an increased role without RJ Barrett, without Obi Toppin in the lineup. So maybe Fournier gets back to business after this 4-game slump. His playing time's kind of been up or down. It's hard to really predict what he's going to do. We can look at this matchup, though, for Fournier. Kind of consider him more of a shooting guard. You can see that the Golden State Warriors in the last 7 games are giving up over 23 points per game to opposing shooting guards. That's not to say that Fournier is going to score 23 points tonight. I'm just saying that if he gets the opportunity, the matchup looks like a good one here against Golden State, who has struggled against the shooting guard position. So maybe you take a shot on Evan Fournier tonight. Oh boy, breaking news. Nick Sarau saying that Kevin Durant was just downgraded to doubtful because half of the Nets are in COVID protocol. He's got a questionable tag. I guess the questionable was downgraded to doubtful. COVID for the Nets, guys. LaMarcus Aldridge officially ruled out with James Johnson and Bembry. Holy smokes. Man, oh man. All right, well, that's not good news, folks. That is not good news. That's shaking things up already between that Toronto and Brooklyn matchup. I'm not seeing any other additional props up on the board. You're saying that they added Portland and Phoenix. Maybe they added them for fantasy points, but I'm not seeing them up on the board for any single stat player props. We got us a live show. It's lit today, folks. We got news coming in. COVID's doing some crazy stuff to us. That game might get canceled. Boston thinks the game might get canceled because maybe the Brooklyn Nets don't have enough players to actually take the floor. I think you have to have like a minimum of what, like 8 players or something like that for a team to actually take the court. Wow. They're back up. You guys are saying they're back up. Well, I'm going to refresh. I'm not seeing them up on the web version. Maybe the app for PrizePicks is showing you one thing, but yeah, I'm not seeing any of the single stat player props. So nonetheless, guys, let's keep it moving here. There's not a whole lot of guys in their last 10 games who are hitting their points props. Mind of Reese is saying, I might fade this entire slate. I don't blame you. Maybe we play some NHL tonight or something. I don't know. It's looking kind of crazy. Kevin Durant is not ruled out. I'm seeing conflicting information from chat. You guys let me know. I'm here doing this live. I don't have the news feed pulled up, but yeah, Trill Fate, definitely bet light today. Agree with you on that one. Not seeing a lot of sexy hit rate props here today, guys, for points. So maybe we could take a look at some of the lower hit rate guys. Derrick Rose at 17.5 points. Could be risky taking the under on him. We talked about the injury news for the New York Knicks. Couple of guys already ruled out. RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin. Maybe you take a shot on Derrick Rose and go under on him. Facing off against the Golden State Warriors. Let's see how many points per game in the last 7 games that the Warriors are giving up to opposing point guards. We go down the list here. Golden State giving up just 20 points per game. So it looks like a pretty tough matchup. We know Golden State is a tough defense, have been one of the tougher defenses this season. So we'll head on over here to the Action Labs tools. Type in Derrick Rose's name. They've got him projected for 16.9 points. If we round it up and call it 17, that puts him under 17.5 points. Now on 2 different books, at 17.5 points, I'm seeing the money coming in on the under on Derrick Rose. So we know the matchup's going to be tough. Rose has only covered this prop once out of his last 5 games. And if we look at the last 10 games, just a 10% hit rate over the last 10 games. So he hasn't been doing a great job of covering his points prop. Money's coming in on the under. Projections are coming in on the under. But he will see an increased role with some of these other Knicks players sitting out tonight. They're saying, Delvin is saying that it's just in the app that the Portland guys and the Phoenix guys have been added to the board. Okay. I'm going to keep refreshing here and seeing if they pop up. But so far, they have not popped up on my screen. So anyway, maybe you go under on Derrick Rose. It could be a little bit risky, but definitely bet light tonight, guys. Don't play any type of heavy money. Seems like this slate's going to be completely wild. We're already getting crazy. Injury news breaking. Well, more so COVID news, I guess, than injury news, but just be very, very mindful of what's going on today. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the assist props here. We've only got 2 of them really to talk about. Scotty Barnes has been one of my favorite ones, though, in the early NBA season at 3.5 assists. That might be a little bit too high for my taste, but let's go ahead and take a look at him. At 2.5 assists, he does have an 80% hit rate. At 3.5, things are a little more difficult on Barnes. He's averaging just 3 assists in his last 5 games. He's only covered this prop twice out of his last 5, doing so against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So be careful with Scotty Barnes at 3.5. If he was down at 3, I'd say let's take a shot on the over. If he was down at 2.5, I definitely like the over, but 3.5, things might get a little bit dicey. So we'll go ahead and pull up this matchup here. Going up against the Brooklyn Nets. We're not really sure who's going to take the floor for the Brooklyn Nets at this moment, but we can at least take a look and see how the Nets have done in terms of assists allowed to opposing small forwards, which is kind of what I classify Scotty Barnes as, more than a shooting guard. We go all the way down to the bottom. They're giving up just 2.3 assists per game to opposing small forwards, but it remains to be seen who will be taking the floor for this Brooklyn Nets squad. So this doesn't look like a positive or plus matchup for Scotty Barnes in terms of an assist prop. And his number at 3.5 has proven difficult for him to hit over the last 5 games. So I think Scotty Barnes could be setting up here for a decent underplay on a ugly little slate like tonight. So we type in Scotty Barnes' name. Unfortunately, not really seeing any projections up for him. Let me go ahead and refresh Action Labs. Maybe they've added a Scotty Barnes assist prop at this point. Hopefully. Yep, there we go. He's at 3.8 projected assists. You're finding him at 2.5 assists out on your favorite sports book. And at 2.5, he's a big betting favorite at -180. So seeing a ton of money coming in over at 2.5. So at 3.5, this becomes a more difficult decision for me, but I'd have to probably lean toward the under, as Scotty Barnes just not getting it done at 3.5 assists. Checking in with chat. What's going on in here, guys? Any updates on these news pieces, these news stories? Dave says, I'm just rolling some college hoops today. He's liking some Duke players. Williams over on boards and Banchero over in points. Siakam for 7.5 rebounds, looking better and better. Okay. Johnson Daily Sport says, great setup. Love the channel. Appreciate that, Johnson. Yeah, I've come a long way. If you go back and watch my early videos back in January when I first started doing this thing, it's been crazy. It's definitely been a great journey, growth here. We got some more assist props up on the board. Bada bing, bada boom. You know, you speak, they listen kind of thing. We just had Fred VanVleet and Scotty Barnes up a minute ago. Now we got Randall, Curry, Burks, Fournier, and Green up here. Let's see if any of these other ones interest us at all. Alec Burks could be interesting at 2.5 assists, 60% hit rate in his last 10 games. If you look at his game logs, though, a little bit hit or miss in the last 5. 60% hit rate, averaging 2.6, slightly more than 2.5. He goes for 3 against Chicago, 0 against Denver, comes back with 5 against the Spurs, 0 against the Pacers, and 5 against Toronto. What will happen with Alec Burks in the lineup without RJ Barrett? Well, somebody's going to have to take over some of these assists. Maybe Alec Burks benefits, because I know RJ Barrett, kind of that facilitator when he's in the lineup, kind of plays secondary ball handler to their main point guard. But you could see Alec Burks as an option here to go over. Let's go ahead and look at this matchup against Golden State. We talked about them in terms of points being a difficult matchup tonight. So let's head on down here, look at this matchup, see how many assists are allowed per game to opposing guards. Golden State giving up about 7.3 assists to opposing point guards. Burks, for me, more of a swingman, more of a shooting guard. Let's go find the Golden State Warriors here. They're giving up just 3.7 assists to opposing shooting guards. So that's more than 2.5, but, you know, a lot of moving parts here for this New York Knicks squad. It's going to be tough to see what happens. What I recommend is go out on Google, type in Court IQ Roto Grinders. Do a Google search for that. There's a free tool out there offered by Roto Grinders called Court IQ. Basically what it does is shows you what happens whenever RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin are out of the lineup, off the court, who benefits the most, whether it be fantasy points, whether it be your favorite single stat player prop. Check out Court IQ. I have a feeling I'll be digging in, running reports on Court IQ all day long with all the injury news and people being ruled out. So that's going to be what I'll be doing, is using Court IQ a lot today to see what's going to happen. Nonetheless, Alec Burks assist prop. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if they've got him projected to go over or under. They like the over at 3.2 assists, putting him over 2.5. Now at 2.5, not really seeing any juice one way or the other. He's a -115 over, -115 under, so not really seeing any action one way or the other here. Let's see if there's any low hit rate players that we should be potentially thinking about. Well, Patty Mills in his last 10 games, just a 30% hit rate. Derrick Rose at 4.5 assists, just a 40% hit rate. Fred VanVleet at 6.5 assists, just a 40% hit rate in his last 10. If we look at his last 5 games here, you could see that he's also sitting at 40% in the last 5, averaging just 6.4 assists tonight, going up against sounds like a depleted Brooklyn squad, but this game may very well be canceled if Brooklyn doesn't have enough players to take the floor. So if you lock any of these in, there's a chance that this game may be canceled or postponed, and you'll get DNPs for your Toronto Raptors. So just be careful, guys. Like I said, if you're going to put any money out there, make sure it's just a little bit of money. Nonetheless, Fred VanVleet, a leading candidate to go under 6.5 assists based on his last 10 and last 5 game logs. Let's pull Fred VanVleet up here. At 6.5 assists, they got him at 6.7, so he's right around that 6.5 assist mark. We're seeing him at 5.5 assists on most of the sports books out there. At 5.5 assists, he's a minus 150 to go over. Now that's fine. If he goes over 5.5 and we take the under at 6.5 and he lands on 6 assists, we still win. He's allowed to have 6. What he can't have is one of these games like he did against New York where he had 11 dimes. Or one of these games against OKC where he had 8 dimes. He's not allowed to have 7 or more assists. So we could we could feel good, rather, taking the under at 6.5 assists on Fred VanVleet. He's been a guy who just hasn't been getting it done lately. All right. Keeping an eye on chat. You guys are breaking news. I appreciate you feeding me all of the latest injury news or illness news, whatever you want to call it. I appreciate all of that. Let's go ahead and talk about some rebounds next. We've talked points. We've talked about assists. We've got different crazy news stories that are rolling in left and right. It's a wild stream. I'm trying to be as limber and as flexible as possible here and adjust in real time as you guys drop these news and nuggets. And Seth is saying he doesn't see how the Raps and Nets is not being canceled. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Are they going to sign? Are they going to call some players up from the G League or something to fill out the rest of their roster? They got guys on speed dial that can fill in on a moment's notice. I don't know. All right, let's look at some of these rebound props. Fred VanVleet was one that I wrote up last night for Patreon. Did not end up coming through, but that was because of a blowout. Now, do you guys think Toronto blows out Brooklyn without Kevin Durant, without LaMarcus Aldridge and company? Maybe. Could be a blowout again. This is a back-to-back for the Toronto Raptors. I'll tell you this, though. At 4.5 rebounds, Fred VanVleet, 70% hit rate over his last 10 games. And the matchup here against Brooklyn, not too difficult either. I mentioned at the top of the show that the Raptors, they're kind of a rebound by committee type of basketball team. So that means you're going to see VanVleet on the boards one game. You might see some Siakam out there. You might see some Precious. He's a game-time decision. You might see Scotty Barnes getting on the glass. Heck, even your boy Trent, maybe he gets up on the boards too. Anyway, kind of hard to predict what's going to happen in terms of rebounds with this Raptors team because they do such a good job of sharing rebounds. But let's go take a look at this matchup against Brooklyn, see how many rebounds per game in the last 7 games that the Brooklyn Nets are giving up to opposing point guards. And we could start things off by looking right here. They're giving up 7.3 rebounds per game, nearly 7.4 rebounds per game to opposing point guards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the 6th most rebounds allowed in their last 7 games to opposing point guards. So this is a plus rebound matchup, at least looking at these last 7 games for the Brooklyn Nets. So we head back over to Action Labs. We'll switch it up here, look at some boards. We've got VanVleet projected for 4.8 rebounds. He is a minus 140 to go over at 4.5. So I think this could be a decent spot, a bounce back situation if and only if you think this game stays close without some of those Brooklyn Nets in the lineup. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have to pay attention to the spread and the totals on this game. But if you think it stays close, I don't mind going back to Fred VanVleet after he comes off of this 3-rebound dud last night, which hurt me against the Sacramento Kings. So that could be an option for you. So maybe the under on Fred VanVleet's assist at 6.5. Maybe we go back to the over on VanVleet at 4.5 rebounds. Some other guys that are getting it done here. Somebody mentioned Pascal Siakam's boards at 7.5. We could take a look at his last 10 games. 50% hit rate in the last 10 at 7.5 boards. But things have picked up for him in the last 5. And a lot of that is because Precious Achiuwa has missed some games for the Toronto Raptors. So we look at the game logs here for him. He had 8, 11, 12, and 8 respectively. So he's got 11 or 12 rebound upside on some nights. Now, Brooklyn, again, we don't know what's going to happen with them, but let's go take a look at this matchup here for Pascal Siakam. He's going to kind of be their center, we'll say, right? One of their big men. And the Brooklyn Nets, in terms of rebounds allowed in the last 7 games to opposing bigs, 13.4 to the center position. So they're doing a pretty decent job there. Let's look at power forwards and see how many boards they've given up in the last 7 games to the power forward position. About 10.5. So decent numbers here. And if you want, we can also take a look at the small forward position and see how Brooklyn does there. In the last 7 games, they're giving up about 7 rebounds per game to that. So that's like your small forwards, your power forwards, your centers. Pascal Siakam, kind of a hybrid player. He fits into one of those roles somewhere. I kind of put him in the power forward / center role without Precious Achiuwa in the lineup. So let's go get you a projection here on Mr. Pascal Siakam. I've got him projected for 7.9 rebounds at the moment. Of course, keep an eye on news as things progress throughout the day. But right now, 7.9 rebounds puts him over 7.5. He's got a pretty high hit rate in his last 5 games. That's working for him as well. And the money's coming in on the over at -140 at 7.5 boards. So a little bit of preliminary research on Siakam suggests that tonight might be a good spot for you to take the over. I would say if you think the game stays close and if Precious Achiuwa is definitely out. Looking at some other guys here. Don't know that I'm super interested. Not seeing fantastic hit rates for any of these other guys. We could look at maybe going under on some of these players. These are guys who are not getting it done in terms of rebounds. Guys that you might want to take an under on. Derrick Rose, he's been a under darling for a lot of his single stat player props on the stream today, but we'll obviously again see a bigger role without a couple of these New York Knicks in the lineup. But at 3.5 rebounds in his last 5 games, has only covered in 3 out of 5. That's a 60% hit rate. We could go take a look at this matchup against Golden State tonight, see how many boards they're giving up per game to opposing point guards, and they're actually kind of high up on the list. They're within the top 10 here, giving up nearly 7 rebounds per game to opposing point guards in their last 7 games. So kind of interesting to see Golden State up there giving up that many boards. We're going to go over here back to Action Labs. We're going to type in Derrick Rose's name, and they've got him projected for 3.6 rebounds, but we're not really seeing any line movement on the over or the under on this player prop. So this might be one to kind of stay away from. I think in general, with all the moving parts and stuff, guys, it's going to be a good night to just go light. Not have too much exposure. Try to find the teams or the situations that have the fewest players ruled out, because you kind of know what to expect from those teams, right? I know it's difficult because there's a lot of names that are potentially going to be out, but yeah, maybe that's the strategy tonight. Stick to the teams that have the fewest number of moving parts, the fewest number of players out of their lineup. Seeing some more props popping in here on the PrizePicks board. They're scrambling, probably much like I'm scrambling to discuss all of these different player props. But let's go ahead and move it over to the 3-point category. I won't make this stream too long because it's just going to be pure and utter chaos. So looking at the 3-point props here, Evan Fournier at 2.5 3-point makes has done a pretty good job over the last 10 games, a 70% hit rate. Now, as we mentioned, due to changes in the New York Knicks rotation, Fournier in the last 5 games has been a little harder to trust. He's got just a 40% hit rate in the last 5 games. Looking at a couple of these games, though, 3 3-point makes against Denver, 3 3-point makes against Toronto. So he's got a couple of games in there where he goes over. I wish this number was a little bit lower, but at 2.5, he does show an ability to kind of get it done here. Let's go back and take a look and see how many 3-point makes per game in the last 7 games that Golden State's giving up to opposing shooting guards. We're going to have to go down a little ways, kind of a middle of the road, middle of the pack matchup here. 2.8 3-point makes, so they're kind of one of the more difficult teams to make 3-pointers against. But Fournier should get plenty of opportunities, seeing more minutes tonight with some of the injury news for the New York Knicks. Let's go ahead and take a look at a projection here on Evan Fournier. Do we trust him tonight? Well, we're not really getting any insider information here. Projected for 2.5, which is exactly where he's at on PrizePicks, exactly where he's at on your favorite sports book. And he is even Steven at -115 over, -115 under. So no real information coming out for Evan Fournier to kind of give us the edge. Said saying he loves the unders. Yeah, we got to take more unders. We got to take more unders. Typically, I usually like to write up a lot of overs for the Patreon posts, but listen, crazy things happen. He had injuries last night to Chris Middleton. He got in foul trouble, couldn't keep his hands to himself, and then he ended up having a blowout in that Toronto-Sacramento game, and so the overs just didn't quite get there. Yeah, Kyle saying that they added the Nets back up to the board. We see James Harden up here for his three-point makes against Toronto tonight. Maybe he takes on an even larger role. No Aldridge, no Kevin Durant. James Harden not doing a great job here in his last 5 games in terms of knocking down the 3-ball. 3 against Houston, 3 against Dallas, but it's been pretty ugly in the other 3 games surrounding those two. 0, 1, and 0 against Atlanta. Maybe James Harden, though, has to put the team on his back, sees his usage, sees his attempts go through the roof. Let's look at this matchup against Toronto, because Toronto's backcourt, not really one that is known for their defense. Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., not lockdown defenders, not guys that are going to clamp anyone up. If we look at the last 7 games here, Toronto giving up 3.2, we'll call it 3.3 3-point makes per game in the last 7 games. We look at the point guard position because Harden kind of functions as that ball handler, that facilitator, that point guard. Even though they got Patty Mills in there and some of these other guys, Harden is kind of the de facto point guard for the Brooklyn Nets. So we go down and we look at the Toronto Raptors and how many 3-point makes they're giving up per game in the last 7 games to the point guard position, just 2.1, right? But that's an average. That's not for guys of James Harden's caliber, guys who can absolutely just get white hot and light the roof on fire. So take these averages with a grain of salt when you consider guys like James Harden or like a Steph Curry. We know that those guys are above average players and superstars, and they could definitely overcome difficult matchups. So definitely worth considering. Let's go ahead and type Harden's name in here. They got him projected for 2.6 3-point makes at this moment, pending any other further news that comes out about the Brooklyn Nets. But at 2.5 3-point makes, a -125 to go over, -105 to go under. So I don't mind you taking a shot on James Harden here without Kevin Durant in the lineup. Who else are they going to turn to for 3 balls, right? It's got to be James Harden, maybe some Patty Mills, but Patty's not up on the board just yet. Another guy who's going to probably step into more minutes tonight is Alec Burks. He's kind of cooled off in his last 5 games in terms of 3-point makes, averaging just 1.2. It's going to be tough tonight. That's why I say go light. Maybe you want to flex more than you do power. More flex entries, less power entries on PrizePicks. But Alec Burks will definitely see more run, more attempts with, Obi Toppin, with RJ Barrett out of the lineup. So there you go. Some names to consider for overs on your 3-point makes. Looking at some unders, well, the guys that I would talk about aren't really up on the board right now. Pascal Siakam at 1.5 3-point makes. If we see him, he's got just a 20% hit rate. Julius Randle, not up on the board. He's another guy at 1.5 3-point makes who has only covered in 30% of his last 10 games. So not seeing any of those guys. They're going to play keep away and kind of not post any of those up on the board. So, all right. That's going to do it for me. Let's take a look at the chat. If you have any plays that you guys are liking, go ahead, drop them in the chat. I'll do some quick lightning round research for you on your favorite player prop. I see you guys talking about Patty Mills. Patty Mills is at 14 points. Are you interested in him? Richard, I kind of agree with you. James Harden's 3's at 2.5. You got to imagine that James Harden's going to be taking and hopefully making a lot more 3's with these Brooklyn Nets. Totsma Goat says, "You're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to expose myself." I don't know what that means, but pause. First of all, I don't want you exposing yourself, son, to me or anyone else. All right? All right. You say expose yourself. I start thinking bad things, like you're going to do something naked. We ain't about that around here. Jeff B's asking, are they going to release Taco Tuesday discounts? That is a great point. I don't know. They've been pretty good over the last few weeks in terms of doing the Taco Tuesdays regularly. Hopefully we get some more Taco Tuesdays, though. I'm curious to see what they're going to be discounting. Maybe it'll be Steph Curry and his three-point prop. I could kind of see them going back to that one. They did that one a couple weeks ago. They've knocked them down from 5.5 three-point makes down to 4.5. A lot of people were like, man, that's not really a Taco Tuesday discount at 4.5 three-point makes versus the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, I didn't like that one. I ended up fading that prop, and Curry did not end up covering against Phoenix. What other picks are you guys liking here? Patty Mills fantasy points, Jacoby. Let's take a look at Patty Mills fantasy points. We haven't talked any fantasy points to this point yet. Now, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, use Court IQ because Court IQ actually gives you the ability to see which players benefit the most for fantasy points when a guy like Kevin Durant's out, when a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge is out for Brooklyn. So maybe Patty Mills, his usage, his fantasy points go way up without those guys in. But you got to do your research, and lineup IQ is, or I'm sorry, Court IQ. Court IQ is the way to do it. Roto Grinders, Court IQ. God, I can't talk. Go Google that. Okay, it'll really help you out and give you more of an insightful piece of information. But for fantasy points, I'm using Fantasy Labs and their projections. Of course, you got to use the FanDuel projections because FanDuel and PrizePicks scoring one and the same, two peas in a pod. So let's pull up Patty Mills here, see if they've got an updated projection. They got him at exactly 23 fantasy points. 23 fantasy points on PrizePicks, 23 fantasy points over on Fantasy Labs. So don't know that I love it, but I could definitely see him going over because somebody's going to have to step up to keep this game competitive for the Brooklyn Nets. So there you go. Patty Mills facing it off against Toronto tonight. Let's go look and see how many points, fantasy points per game Toronto gives up to opposing point guards. Wow, they're pretty tough. They're the third most greedy, third most stingy, 39.1 fantasy points allowed to opposing point guards. So it sounds like a lot, but when you look at the rankings here, they're the third most difficult in terms of fantasy points. All right, be careful with Patty Mills. I do think that the role will increase, the usage will increase, the shots will increase for him. Just be careful. Pick'ems, you're liking James Harden's points without Kevin Durant. Well, I would love, you know what? Screw it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Let's go ahead and pull up Court IQ. I keep talking about it. It's a free tool. You guys can check it out. Let's see what happens here. All right. So if we click starters, it'll give us all of the projected starters tonight, which includes Kevin Durant. We know that that's not right. So we can click him off. Look at Bruce Brown, Claxton, Mills, Harden. All those guys will be on the court. Or what we could do, we'll reset the court. We'll just take off the guys that we know for sure won't be on the court tonight. That'll be Aldridge. That'll be Durant. That'll be, who else do we talk about? Bembry's going to be off tonight. If I'm forgetting anyone, I apologize. But then we'll click Run Query. With all of those guys off, we'll click FanDuel. And then we can take a look here. This is Brooklyn's usage this season per 36 minutes. Okay, per 36 minutes. This is assuming that these guys play 36 minutes tonight. They may not. And in that case, what I recommend you doing is clicking the per minute button. And then you take whatever single stat player prop you're looking at. Let's say it's, you guys mentioned James Harden's points, right? So we have to look at the sample size, 94 minutes without Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, and DeAndre Bembry. James Harden has played 94 minutes without those three guys on the court this season. Kind of a small sample size, not going to lie. So take it with, a grain of salt, but 94 minutes without those guys on the court. He's averaging 0.77 points per minute. Okay, and then what you do from here is you find yourself a projection site. In this case, we can look at Fantasy Labs. We type in James Harden's name, and then we go find how many minutes he's projected to play, which I've got him at 39 projected minutes. So you're going to take 39 minutes, and you're going to multiply it by the 0.77 points per game that he has scored per minute for the Brooklyn Nets without those guys on the court this season. You multiply those two numbers together, and then you'll get an idea, just an idea, rough estimate of how many points maybe we can expect from James Harden. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you right now. Live. We're doing it live. I'm going to pull out my phone. 39 minutes times 0.77 equals about 30 points. So if he truly gets 39 minutes at 0.77 points per minute without those guys on the floor, we can expect around 30 real-life points from James Harden. So that's how you kind of use court IQ. You take the players off that are ruled out, then it gives you a report here, who benefits the most without those guys on the floor. If you want to look at just 36 minutes, an estimate of, how many minutes these guys play, assuming James Harden gets 36 minutes, he should be at about 27.87 points tonight. Of course, you got to factor in the matchup against the Toronto Raptors. That will play a part in this, but it kind of gives you at least a starting point where you should be going here. They got him at 47.7 fantasy points if he plays 36 minutes. So his fantasy score right now is 51.5. So you would take the per minute fantasy points, 1.33 fantasy points per minute, and you would multiply it by his projected minutes of 39, and then that would give you an idea of how many fantasy points you can expect from James Harden. So is this helpful? Does this make sense, what I'm doing here, using Court IQ? Totally free. Go check it out, Roto Grinders, Court IQ. But hopefully, you guys utilize this tool tonight. You could do it with the other teams too. You could go to the Knicks, for instance. Not going to do them all, but I'll show you, with the New York Knicks, how you can use this tool for them. So we don't think Kemba Walker is going to be in the rotation, right? We already know that Obi Toppin is out. RJ Barrett is out. There might be some other guys here. I don't know the full who's in, who's out just yet. But then you would click run, and it'll pull up a report. Make sure you're using FanDuel projections here. This is per minute. We'll look at per 36 minutes. Keep an eye on the minutes here, the sample size. So 187 minutes, Julius Randle has been on the floor without Walker, Barrett, or Toppin in the lineup. You would scroll over here. That puts him at about 18.8 points, or about 39.6 fantasy points. He's at 39 fantasy points today over on PrizePicks. So they've done a pretty good job. They're pretty dialed in here on Julius Randle. Other things that this could help you with, you click the usage column. You see that in this limited sample of just 5.7 minutes, throw that one out, Miles McBride's usage was 37%. So that's why I say keep an eye on the sample size. Julius Randle at 187 minutes is the biggest beneficiary without Walker, Barrett, or Toppin in the lineup. All right, 28.2% usage at 36 minutes. But if Randle somehow plays 40 minutes tonight, then you're going to want to take the per minute for Randle. Let's say it's points, 0.52, and multiply it by his projected minutes tonight. And that'll give you a rough estimate, rough idea of maybe how many points you can expect. Got to factor in the matchup and all that stuff too. But hopefully that is helping people out. Yeah, some of you guys are saying that Durant is out. Some of you are saying, where does it say Durant is out? Yeah, we don't know for sure yet, guys. Just got to keep an eye on the injury news. Stay plugged in on that, all right? So you're asking about Harden points. Like I said, about 30 points, potentially. If he plays 39 minutes at 0.77 points per minute without those guys we talked about on the floor, Harden would be right around 30 points. Let's see if I could pull up a projection and see where they have Harden. They got him at 23.8. Not sure if this factors in Aldridge being out, Durant being out. We have to wait and see if they are really truly out or not, because some of you are saying that they're not. Some of you are saying that they are. But yeah, Harden 23.8 projected points at this moment. At 24.5, he's a betting favorite on two different sites to go over at 24.5, despite the projection being lower than 24.5. So, talked about some Patty Mills points. Make sure you use that Court IQ tool. I can't stress it enough. Will definitely help you get a more insightful idea of how Harden, how Patty Mills, and whoever else you're wanting to play from Brooklyn does without Kevin Durant, without Bembry, without Aldridge around. Delvin, you're liking some Julius Randle over rebound. Julius Randle over on rebound. So we go back to Julius Randle here. He's at 9.5 boards. It's been a little bit of a struggle here for Randle in the last 5 games. He has covered in the last 2 against Toronto and Milwaukee, respectively. Prior to that, 8, 7, and 7. So kind of a mixed bag here for Julius Randle. Overall, in the last 5 games, 9.2 rebounds per game. So yeah, I mean, maybe you take a shot on Julius Randle. Again, we could use Court IQ to kind of help us with this. We'll just look at the per 36 minutes. We'll go to the total rebounds, and you can see that Julius Randle, 10.2 rebounds per game per 36 minutes without Walker, Barrett, and Toppin in. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can maybe expect from Julius Randle. Now we need to go look at the matchup, right? So for that, we'll go back over here to this Fantasy Pros tool. We'll click the rebound column. We'll go down. We'll find the Golden State Warriors. They're giving up about 10.2 rebounds per game to opposing power forwards. Now, sometimes Randle slides in at center. So how many rebounds is Golden State giving up to the center position? We can also go check that for you as well. So we'll go down. We'll find Golden State, about 15 boards to opposing centers. So 15 to centers, 10 for power forwards. I think overall it's probably a little bit of a plus matchup for Julius Randle in terms of rebounds. So we click rebounds, type in Randle's name here on Action Labs. They got it projected for 9.9 boards, very close to 10. And on one of these sports books, he's at minus 120 to go over 9.5. So there you go. Maybe take a shot on Julius Randle over on rebounds. Rose rebounds at 3.5, Richard. Rose rebounds at 3.5. Let's take a look at it. While we've got Court IQ pulled up, we could go find Derrick Rose here at, if he plays 36 minutes tonight. If he plays 36 minutes tonight, maybe he's right around the 3.5 rebound mark. He's at 3.6 if he plays 36 minutes tonight. Okay, so they've done a pretty good job with his rebound line at 3.5. He's covered 3.5 in 3 out of 5 games. So he doesn't get a real big boost to his rebounds with these players that we've mentioned, Barrett, Top, and Walker, all off the court. Okay. Another thing that you can do with this tool is come down to the differential section, click FanDuel, and then you can look at per 36 minutes. And you can see sort of a plus or minus situation here depending on the single stat prop you're looking at. So we go to Derrick Rose, total rebounds. He's actually in the negative with those players we mentioned off the court. Minus 0.74 rebounds. Not a big negative or anything. That's why you're not seeing it highlighted red or green or anything like that. But it kind of gives you some differentials down here. Taj Gibson, plus 11% usage with those guys off the floor. Quentin Grimes, plus 6.1. So that's how you use the Court IQ tool, though. And I think that's going to answer a lot of these questions for a lot of you folks out there. So Shadow Stefan is saying KD is playing. Dave, you're asking about Steph at 5.5 3-point makes. Well, I think Steph's going to take a lot of threes tonight. And I think he's going to be a popular option. In the last 5 games, Steph Curry has covered in 2 out of his last 5 at 5.5 3-point makes. So 40% hit rate, not great for one of the best shooters, maybe the best shooter of all time, soon to be the player who's made the most threes in his career, soon to be. So maybe we look at Steph Curry in this matchup here, see how many 3-point makes per game that the New York Knicks are giving up. Are they at the bottom or are they at the top? Looks like they're kind of more toward the bottom, giving up about 2.2 3-point makes to opposing point guards in the last 7 games. All right. So not an easy matchup here. So let's go pull a projection up for Steph Curry and his 3-point makes. Curry's projected for 5.8. But he is a betting favorite at 5.5 3-point makes to go under. Minus 135, minus 140 odds to go under 5.5. So that kind of gives you an idea on Steph Curry. Probably 5 is safe. 6 or more might be pushing it. We'll just have to see. Jimmy, you're asking about Anthony Simons fantasy points. Anthony Simons fantasy score. Let's go take a look at him. Obviously, CJ McCollum's out. Simons will have a much bigger role. 26.5. He's covered in 4 out of his last 5 games. That's a 80% hit rate. Almost said 40%. 80% hit rate in his last 5 games at covering 26.5. We go take a look at this matchup here at shooting guard. How many fantasy points are given up per game by the Phoenix Suns to opposing shooting guards in the last 7 games? We got to go down quite a ways here because Phoenix kind of stingy, giving up 36.6. So that's going to impact Simons. That's going to impact Norman Powell. Phoenix, pretty tough defensive team on that wing. You got the Mikhail Jail, they call it, right? You got Jay Crowder out there locking and clamping guys up. So it could be a tough night for Anthony Simons in terms of fantasy points. He's going to have his work cut out for him. We'll go back here. We'll take a look at Simons in his fantasy points projection. He's at 26.7, guys. So got him pretty dialed in here on PrizePicks at 26.5. Not seeing a lot of upside for Simons. So just be careful with that one. While you guys continue to debate, is Kevin Durant in? Is Kevin Durant out? I don't know. Totes McGoats says he doesn't see how Scotty Barnes doesn't hit 33 fantasy points or more. Brooklyn is terrible inside where he gets most of his points. Brooklyn does not rebound the ball well. Scotty Barnes does. So you're liking some Scotty Barnes fantasy points. We'll take a look at that. Guys, make sure you're liking the stream today. It's been complete in utter chaos and madness with the news coming in, the board changing on me. You know what would make my day? You slapping that like button. That would make my day. Don't forget to do that for your boy. Appreciate you. 33 fantasy points in his last 5 games. 4 out of the last 5, he's actually covered this prop. That's an 80% hit rate. Things are looking good here for Mr. Scotty. 37.7 fantasy points per game on average in his last 5. Let's go take a look at this matchup here. Scotty Barnes versus the Brooklyn Nets, who are now without, supposedly, Kevin Durant and LaMarcus Aldridge. I can't seem to get a clear answer from anybody out there. It sounds like it's being debated heavily still. I heard Durant was questionable, and he gets bumped down to doubtful. Who knows? Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. Brooklyn giving up about 44 fantasy points, 44.5 fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. Okay. If we look at the small forward position, Brooklyn gives up 36.1 per game. Now, this is a healthy Brooklyn Nets squad, right? Over the last 7 games, this is factoring Durant being in and Aldridge being in. But 36.1 to opposing small forwards. That doesn't mean Barnes is going to get all of these, though. There's more than one small forward on the Toronto Raptors squad, okay? But maybe Barnes does benefit. He's got a pretty good hit rate. Let's go pull up a projection for you on Scotty Barnes and his fantasy points. 33.9, so really close to 34 with a rating of 74.1. Not a terrible rating. I like to look for guys that are rated 80, 90 or higher. Okay, but he does have a ceiling score of 45.9 fantasy points, so maybe he gets there. Definitely cross-reference these projections. There's various other sites out there that you can use that are free. So there you go. Craig is saying he's liking Van Vliet under 6.5 assists and Draymond over 6.5 assists. So we talked about Van Vliet being a decent option in terms of an underplay. Let's talk about Draymond Green at 6.5 assists. We have not talked about Dre Day. Draymond Green at 6.5 assists, taking on the New York Knicks. In his last 5 games, it's been tough sledding. It's been tough here for Draymond Green. He's got a couple of games in there where he went for 9 and 8 assists, respectively. But then he's got 3 other games where he goes way under his assist line of 6.5 today with just 3 against Orlando, just 2 against Philly, and 5 against Indiana. So overall, 40% hit rate for Draymond Green. Now, he's the power forward. Make no mistakes about it, for the Golden State Warriors. Let's go look at this matchup here. See how many assists per game are given up by this New York Knicks squad in their last 7. They're kind of toward the top, but right around the top of the middle, we'll call it, giving up about 4 assists per game to opposing power forwards. If you want to call Draymond Green a center, sometimes he slots in at that center position for the Golden State Warriors when they go small ball. You can. The New York Knicks give up about 2.7 assists per game to the center position. So not looking like a great plus assist matchup here for Draymond Green. Let's get you a projection on Draymond. Got him projected for 8.2 and at 6.5 assists on a couple different books. He's a minus 130. Okay, so maybe this is a bounce back spot for Draymond against New York. You could go a step further. You could look at historical matchups for Draymond versus New York over the course of his career, or maybe the course of the last 5 matchups against New York. How has Draymond done in the assist category versus the Knicks? So those are some other ideas for you to research this prop a little bit further. Scrolling through here, Dave is saying whenever Harden's free throw prop comes out, just smash the over. Smash the over on James Harden's free throws. G-Lo saying KD is still questionable. All right, good to know, good to know. Johnson says KD would be on PrizePicks if he was playing. I think he will be out. Good point, good point. G-Lo says, I do think he's going to sit out, though, because it's his ankle. I think they play it safe, especially coming off the Achilles injury. Yeah, Durant listed as questionable. Aldridge under on rebounds. Is Aldridge playing, Daniel? For sure? I don't know if Aldridge is in or out. What's up, Zebo? What's up, DFS Whispers? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. Is Aldridge actually in tonight? I thought Aldridge was ruled out. Daniel, I think Aldridge might be out tonight. Just saying. I'm just saying. Rose over on points. We talked about Rose earlier at 17.5 points. If you're just getting here, he's going to step into a bigger role. But do we love Rose over on points, even in a bigger role? 17.5 has been a hard number for him to reach. So if we go over and look at per 36 minutes, this is depending on Rose playing 36 minutes tonight with Toppin, Barrett, and Walker off the court, he should be good for about 16 points. Got to also factor in the matchup, okay? The totals, the spread, like that will all play into this number. But 16 points, that would make me lean under on Derrick Rose. Golden State, tough defensive matchup. So I'm not loving the over on Derrick Rose. What else are you guys talking about? We'll take a couple more and then we'll get up out of here. We'll make this a little shorter, hopefully today. Bridges fantasy points and quickly fantasy points. Well, I will quickly pull up some fantasy point props for those two mentioned players. Bridges at 24 fantasy points has covered in just 2 out of his last 5 games. That's a 40% hit rate. Not the greatest. He's averaging 23.1 fantasy points per game in his last 5. Kind of fills in that small forward position for the Phoenix Suns, we'll call it. Going up against Portland. Portland giving up over 47 fantasy points per game in the last 7 games. That means that's the 5th most. 5th most. So that's a pretty plus matchup here for Bridges. So don't mind that one whatsoever. Let's get you a projection on Bridges today. Mikal, 27.3 fantasy points is his projection. 27.3. So they like the over by about 3 to 4 fantasy points on Bridges. So hopefully that helps you out. Quickly was the other one you managed. Is his name or mentioned? Quickly, yeah, Emmanuel Quickly. 23.5 fantasy points. Stepping into a bigger role. Let's go take a look on Court IQ. Now, if he gets 36 minutes tonight, we go over to the fantasy points column here. We find Emmanuel Quickly. He's at about 27.5 fantasy points. Okay, so this isn't like set in stone. This isn't like perfect by any means, but 27.5 kind of gives you an idea. At 23.5, maybe we could lean toward the over, right? Now he's kind of a combo guard, kind of plays a little bit of that point guard role for New York, a little shooting guard at times, right? So going against the Golden State Warriors, tough matchup. They give up about 42 to 43 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards in their last 7 games. So again, that doesn't mean he's going to get all of those points, but kind of gives you an idea of maybe what to expect. Let's look at his fantasy points projection here. I've got him at 30.8. 30.8 fantasy points, guys, on Fantasy Labs. He's at 23.5 on PrizePicks. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty big edge. That's like, what, 7-point difference? I would say that Quickly makes for a good option right now of this moment. All right? You could go over on Quickly's fantasy points. Delvin says the like button has been slapped. Appreciate you, Delvin, and I appreciate everybody else for following Delvin's lead. Delvin's a leader, I can tell. Good job, Delvin. Thanks for the love, man. Shadow Stefan says I have Rose at 13.5 points on my sports book. I think he should go over. Man, he's at 13.5. If you get him at 13.5, that doesn't sound like it's been adjusted for the RJ Barrett, for the Obi Toppin news. You got to take the over at 13.5 points, but at 17.5, I don't know. I ain't touching it. Double Shot Helix says, CJ, that Trae Young rebounds overcall you gave me yesterday won me $750. Definitely about to sign up for Patreon. Man, I would love to have you aboard, Double Helix. You can find the link for Patreon down in the description below. I'm glad that I won you some loot, though. That's a big bag, 750 bones. Jimmy says, what about James Harden's fantasy points at 51.5? It kind of does seem high, Jimmy. It kind of does seem high. We ran the court IQ earlier, and they had him coming in under 51.5 fantasy points. And at 51.5 in his last 5 games, he has come up short. The highest output he's had is 49.8 against Dallas. That was a good game, but not good enough to cover 51.5. But of course, the potential injury news for Brooklyn, got to wait and see. But as of right now, I've got James Harden projected for 53.96. Let's call it 54 fantasy points, putting him over 51.5. All right. Jimmy says, always like and share the Curry live streams. Man, I appreciate it. Look, there ain't a whole bunch more for us to talk about here. So I'm going to go ahead, wrap things up right here, right now. Hopefully this stream helped you out. If it did, drop a like on the way out. I appreciate all the love and support. If you want to sign up for Patreon, link down in the description below. If you want to sign up for PrizePicks, maybe you've never played there before, use the link down in the description below to get a 100% instant deposit match on your first deposit up to $100. That's going to be it, guys. Good luck tonight. Remember, play light tonight. Maybe you want to flex a bit more than you usually do. Run less power plays, maybe more flex plays. But overall, this is looking like a disaster of an NBA slate. So just be careful with your bankroll. Be careful, all right? I'll be back at it tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for everybody who subscribed. Thank you so much for everybody who has liked. And thank you so much for the comments and the shares of these live streams. Appreciate your help. See you in the next one, guys. Peace.